What's up, guys? To get back to the video that I got cut off on, when Harrison Deal was a University of Georgia student who was also dating Brian Kemp's daughter, was going to meet up with Mike Pence. He mysteriously had a quote-unquote car wreck that we discussed was probably otherwise, and he ended up not being able to meet with Mike Pence, obviously, in a suburb of Georgia. But when that happened, and when they went to go to support Loeffler and Perdue for the Congress re-election, there were obviously shady circumstances behind the supposed car wreck, considering the timing and the corruption and the abrupt stop and halt and votes and everything on the line going back to the lockdowns and the protests the summer before. And considering the past circumstances of political slayings and or executions, this seemed odd, and just so happened Dallas-based lawyer Sidney Powell said Harrison Deal. I thought it was odd, and I thought that there was foul play, but just so happened right when I thought that, Dallas-based lawyer Sidney Powell said Harrison Deal was murdered. And other people are claiming that Harrison Deal was murdered. Well, the detective that was investigating the circumstances of death in regard to Harrison Deal was found dead several days later in his home. So that is unusual. That happened. Fast forward a month later, and nothing really has been said about this story, but it's still sour, and the lack of full canvassing and auditing is sour. And as we get back to this, and as I get back to rewinding and filling in where I did from the previous video, Brian Kemp's contract and kickbacks and money from Dominion voting systems are what prevented him from doing a full canvassing and audit, as he did do a small press conference on a few stations, but it was basically not talked about or not pressed in regard to the death of Harrison Beale, because it'll tie back to his corrupt involvement in Dominion voting systems and his kickbacks and money from them. But when that didn't happen, and eventually another 3 or 4 weeks went by, and there was Christmas and New Year's, and then there was still a promise in regards to Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue ejecting from the Electoral College votes, as they promised to do, or as Perdue said he would look at it, but Loeffler promised to do so. But if you go into Loeffler, her ties to insider trading and her clearance from that basically was a back-end deal for probably her to lose, and for her to accept that, basically making what Linwood said true, that she was compromised. I don't know by China, but she is compromised in regards to her knowings of possible insider trading, but that forced her out, possibly, and made her fine with what was going on with Dominion. But what really sealed the deal was that her staffer, aka or employee, Harrison Deal, student at the University of Georgia, age 20, didn't live, and the circumstances around that are shady. and there could have been some kind of threat or corruption or litigation that made Kelly Loeffler ultimately end up not objecting to the Electoral College and going along with the certification with the 46th President of the United States. But that's what happened, and a lot of that ties back to Deal, but that is the story with Brian Kemp, who is going to be primaried, but if Brian Kemp and Leonard Jones split the vote, that could ultimately open up for Stacey Abrams. But Brian Kemp's kickbacks from Dominion are making him much more quieter than what he would be about his future son-in-law's death. And that is behind the corruption of which why what Winwood said about Kelly Loeffler is true, and they would have rigged it no matter what. Channel 1, I'm signing off.